Greetings from South Korea. I am Arirang News AI anchor. Here is the news making headlines today. The immediate threat of war has been paused, as just hours after warning that a whole civilization will die, U.S. President Donald Trump announced a suspension of military strikes against Iran. Under the 2-week ceasefire, heavily mediated by Pakistan, military escalation will be halted, and the Strait of Hormuz will reopen. U.S. President Donald Trump welcomed the news, saying that the U.S. will help ease the massive traffic buildup in the vital waterway. Meanwhile, a battle over the narrative has taken over, with both Washington and Tehran claiming absolute victory. Iran's Supreme National Security Council announced a defeat for the U.S. State media claimed Washington agreed to a 10-point plan. However, Trump declared the ceasefire a total and complete victory. Following the announcement of a ceasefire in the Middle East, the South Korean won strengthened sharply, closing at 1,476.6 to the US dollar. This is 33.61 lower than the day before, after being mostly trapped above the critical 1,500 threshold in recent weeks as Operation Epic Fury prolonged, and investors turned to the safe haven dollar, while global oil prices surged. Domestic equities also rallied on the geopolitical de-escalation. The benchmark KOSPI spiked early trading and, throughout the day, went up 7% to return to the 5,800-point mark, closing at 5,872.34. The rise was driven by the two biggest companies on the list, with SK Hynix closing at 1,033,001, up 12.77% compared to the day before. Samsung Electronics, the largest company by market cap, closed at 210,501, surging 7.12% from the previous session. Seoul is introducing new parking restrictions as part of emergency energy-saving measures. Starting Wednesday, the city begins its 5-day rotational parking system across more than half of its public parking lots. Under the rule, drivers can only park on designated days based on the last digit of their license plate. Vehicles ending in 1 or 6 will be restricted on Mondays, 2 or 7 on Tuesdays, 3 or 8 on Wednesdays, 4 or 9 on Thursdays, and 5 or 0 on Fridays. The system will not apply on weekends or public holidays. The measure follows the government's decision to raise the National Oil Resource Security Alert to warning, prompting a series of nationwide emergency steps. Debate over a supplementary budget to counter Middle East-driven economic risks is intensifying at the Nat'l Assembly's Special Committee on Budget and Accounts, as lawmakers hold a second and final day of policy questioning on Wednesday. Lawmakers from the ruling Democratic Party and the main opposition People Power Party both agree on the need for emergency measures but remain sharply divided over specific spending items, with disputes continuing over energy relief and other key provisions. The bill has already grown by nearly 3.5 trillion Korean won during committee reviews, raising the total to around 30 trillion won, around $20.4 billion US dollars, if all additions are approved. Lawmakers plan to finalize details in a subcommittee on Thursday before putting the revised budget to a full floor vote on Friday. North Korea launched yet another unidentified missile on Wednesday afternoon, after having fired several others in the early morning. According to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the South Korean military detected one unidentified ballistic missile at around 2:20 p.m. fired from the Wonsan area toward the East Sea, flying over 700 kilometers. This comes after the regime fired several ballistic missiles toward the East Sea earlier in the morning. The missiles, assumed to be KN-23s, the so-called North Korean version of the Iskander, were launched in the morning from the Wonsan area at around 8:50 a.m. and flew approximately 240 kilometers. That is all from me today. Thank you for watching.